Welcome to the next lecture. In the last lecture we have discussed about that how we can see the events which are on the dates of today and in the future, and also we have learned about the JSON of the event detail screen. So we were looking into that, and we can see that we need the text as well. So if we go to the posts table, there is a column text, so this text should come there, and similarly then we have an attachment. So this is an attachment. So for example, if we go inside the attachments table and see there is there any attachments against the post, so yes, we have an attachment against the post, and we know that the object id is one of that post, and the URL of that is post1.png. So we can say that okay, the attachment is post uploads and post1.png. Then the likes count and comments count we will see accordingly as well. So if we will go to the likes table and then see how many likes are there against that post, so I think against this post there is a one like in the database. And for the comments, we will go to the comments table and see if there is any comment or not. So yes, we have one comment, but that is not against the post id 1, so that's why our comments count is 0 over here. So as we know that first we need to solve this is joined, and then we will move to the next query of posts. So this was our original query for the events, and now there is one thing that we need this specific event, right? So we will write over here that where e.id equals 1. So whatever the event the user will click and come here, that event id we will mention over here. Okay, to check the is joined, if you remember that there was another table which is called event participants. So in this event participants there is no record right now, but instead of that, so for example, if there is no record, which means the person who is coming to this screen has not joined this event yet, so obviously that will be is joined false. But to add that inside the query, we need to add that check. So after the date, for example, first I will do is I will write out that I need to check an inner query saying select count static, that I am counting like how many records are there from event participants where. So we need to check the event participants against a specific event, right? So we will say okay, event participants dot event id should be equals to our event id of the event which we are looking for. And also we need to check one more thing is inside the event participant, the user id, I mean the person who is visiting this page, should be equals to the person id. So for now I am just putting 1, but once we will have the app, so whatever the user will be logged in and go to the event detail page, he will see this, and we will for example call it as is joined. So for now we are just looking at the total number of records available into that accordingly. So is joined is 0 here, but here we don't have a condition. So for example, if that is found, then obviously that the count will be 1 in that case if the records will be found. But the best way is to do that is to add a condition which is called a case. So what we will do, we will say okay, inside the case of the SQL we will check okay, if we found this, I mean the selection, if the count from the event participants when 0, when 0. If the count is 0, then we will say it's false, which means that he has not joined that event yet. Else we will say true, which means he has joined that event. In else we will return true, and then we will end our statement. So basically what we are trying to say, okay, if the person inside this event has joined this event, the record is available inside the event participant, then it should be true. If no, which means the count is 0, then it should be false. So let's try it out and see what it shows inside the is joined. So if we go there, yes, the is joined is false. The reason I am asking you to learn about the cases is, for example, if you are getting data from another table and that specific table data is not available against that condition, then you can add things inside the cases. For example, in the future you will see, okay, if there is a user, then say is available according to the conditions, and also through this condition you can learn few more things. Like for example, if there is a scenario like if the user has marks in 60 marks, then we will say pass. So you sum up the marks over here, and then you see if when greater than 60, then you will say okay, it's pass, else you will say it's fail. So this way you can add conditions to your queries through using the cases. So this is how we have completed this section, and now let's move to the next section, which is called posts. So if we go back to our database and we see the posts are actually which are linked with this event which we have just fetched. So for the post we need few things, like for example we need select static from post, which means getting all the data from the post. Okay, for now that's fine, but we need specific things from the post, right? So first thing we will say, okay, we create an abbreviation for our post table as P, and then we need to check, okay, what needed to be shown. Well, first thing is the ID. So we will say, okay, first thing is we need is p.id, and if we just check it though, then obviously it will show only the ID over here. Okay, and then if we move on and check what other things we need the user image. Okay, that's fine. Actually the user image is the person who has created this post, right? So if we just check this table again, let me open and then see, okay, here is a user ID, the person who created this post. Okay, so we need the user image, user name and user ID accordingly from the users table on basis of that. So what we will do, because that is coming from the other table, so we need to add a join, and we will say, okay, let's join those tables from. So we will say, okay, join users as you mean I'm just giving abbreviation as you, so you understand better. So we will say, okay, on post.user_id should be equals to users.id. So the person who has actually posted this post, only that person data should come here in this section. And which things we need from the users table, as you just saw that we need the users ID and users ID as user ID, then we need user.name as username, and the last thing we need is user.image as user image. we will concatenate the URL of that image as well. So if we just try out this query and then see how it performs, so I just click go, and then we see, okay, yes, it's showing the user of that post, user ID 2, username John, and also image is no image, which means the image is not there, but it's showing the default image. But you know that you need to concatenate here. So the reason we concatenate is so we can show the full image path, and which will be used to show inside the mobile applications accordingly. So what is our path? So for example, we have our domain abc.com/upload/ this is the path where we have the image right now, and we just concatenate it in the link, and then if we try it out, okay, function event concat does not exist. Okay, there is some issue in this, let's figure it out. So concat, okay, username as username, okay, fine, user image as user image, what could be the issue? User image, let's read it out. Function interconcat does not concat, okay, sorry, okay, it should be concat, I think. Let's try. Okay, fine. So now we have concatenation of the user image. Then which other things we need? Now we have user image, username, user ID, then we need text from the post. Okay, that makes sense. So we need text from the post ID, and we need post which is actually text, and then if we try it out, it shows, okay, now we have text as well. Then we need the attachment. So if you remember, if we go back to the attachments table and see if there is any attachment against this post. So okay, we have object type post, we have object ID 1, and so I think this is its post. So what we will do, we will come back to our query and we will add this query as well for the attachment. So just over here we will say, okay, we need to select URL from attachments table, where attachments dot object ID should be equal to our post.id. And one more thing we need to take care of is inside the attachments dot object type should be equal to post. So we will only get the data of the post, as we can call it as attachment or accordingly attachment. So if we try it out and see, okay, it's showing us the post ID, post 1 image, but it's not concatenated now. So we need to concatenate it with our base URL concat, and which thing we want to concat is our domain /uploads. Uploads is the folder where our data is saved right now, and we make double brackets accordingly for that. And if we run it, yes, so it's not concatenated. Now concatenated. Now the next thing we need is the likes count. Interesting. So if we go back to our database and see the likes table, okay, perfect. So we have object type and object ID over here in the likes table, which means there is one like of this post, So how do we get that? So we will write another subquery and we will call it as, okay, select count mean total from likes, where likes dot object ID is should be equals to post.id. And one thing we need to make sure is that in the likes table the object type should also be object type should also be equals post, because we are counting the likes of the post, so that's why we need to make sure it's post, and we can call it as likes, for example, and then see what happens. So if click go, yes, we can see there is a one like against this post one, because we are seeing the data of the first post, this post, and there is one data in the likes table for the object id 1, object type post, so we are calling that as likes. Okay, next thing we do need is if we come here, okay, we have the likes count, now we need the comments count. So similarly, if we go back to our comments table and see, okay, there is a one comment, but that is against post id 2, not post id 1. But anyways, we need to check that inside our query. So what we will say, okay, select count as static from comments as well, where our comments dot post id equals our post dot id as comments. Okay, so we need to add a comma after the likes, and then if we try out this query and see, okay, comments are 0 because this post id does not have any comment. So for example, if let's try it out, and if we just copy this comment and if we add this against post id 1 as well, and let's see, and just press enter. Now we have added one comment against post id 1 as well. So let's rerun our query and see if that shows us comment 1 or not. So yes, so it's showing the comments 1. So for example, if we just copy this again and to see that if it shows there are 2 comments against this or not. So if I just go back and run it, so yes, so we can see. So this is how you can make the whole data for the event profile page. So hopefully you guys have learned a lot in this, because we have discussed about the case, we have discussed about the concatenation, we have discussed about the count of likes and comments from different tables, and also we have bring the user data from the other table. So in the next lecture we will talk about the next screens. Thank you for watching.